Howdy neighbor, how is your garden growing? Today in my garden, we're going to be talking about the vegetables, fruits, and flowers you should consider to plant in your garden for the month of April so that you can create the garden of your dreams right here in Florida. And to help make sure that I give you the best suggestions and tips, no matter whether you live in North, Central, or South Florida, I'm going to be using my handy dandy Wild Floridian garden planner, which you can pick up at www.wildfloridian.net/planner. So let's start with vegetables. So veggies that you should start from seed, whether you live in North, Central, or South Florida, they're going to be hot weather crops. So whether you live in zone 8, 9, 10, or 11, think about things like roselle, okra, loofah, hot weather squashes like Seminole pumpkin, and beans, with my particular favorite being Puerto Rican black beans. And I guess technically not a seed, but you should still consider starting it. It's gonna be things like sweet potatoes. What's kind of the theme when we think about all these hot weather crops is these are all the plants that you're gonna get them in now. I know it's the beginning of spring, but they're gonna go through spring. They're gonna actually cover and protect your beds. They're gonna fill the spaces so you don't get overtaken by weeds over the summer. And in the summer, especially late summer, early fall, are gonna be producing crops and then make way for you to start back into warm weather crops. Because one of the big mistakes a lot of Floridians will do is we'll leave our beds totally bare, which means they get overtaken by weeds, or all the nutrition that you've built up or you've put into those beds gets totally washed out by our summer rains. So getting a crop in, even if you're not gonna eat it, is still really important just so that you can maintain that organic matter in your soil. I know for me, I've just gotten some roselle started and put into my front beds. I'm now starting to think about getting more roselle and more okra and even maybe doing something fun like peanuts. There are a lot of options when it comes to hot weather crops. The trick is that they will never be varieties that you would have grown up north. When you think hot weather crops, here are some of the ones that I have used in the past. When it comes to okra, I just use like the Clemson spineless okra. I really like eating these when they're small. They're great when it's really, really hot out, which we're starting to get kind of on the hot end in the month of April, and definitely really humid and the sun's intense. So I like the Clemson spineless because you can snap them right off in the garden and eat them when they're like baby okras. Another of my favorites is of course roselle. We've talked about this last month. This is a great cranberry substitute and they're just really pretty. Another one I didn't mention, but I should have added to the list. If you're looking for a leafy alternative with a little bit of a lemony tang to it, consider doing cranberry hibiscus. It's one that I'm planning on getting some seeds for because I like eating wood sorrel, which is that one of those weeds that you find in your yard, and it has a very similar flavor to cranberry hibiscus. And if I can have that flavor go more of the year, I'll be really happy. Of course, you want to get pumpkins going. I'm really into starting these if you're going to start them and don't already have them running around your garden like I do. But if you need to start them, I would be starting them now because I really want to get them well established, get those plants growing so that they can actually set root and second root and third root so that they can really deal with the intensity of the sun that's going to come later and possibly set fruit before we get too hot and too intense. Because once we get into the hotter months, while the plant will survive, the flowers will slow down because they want to get through the summer, not as much like produce. So get them in now so that you might get one set of crops before you get to summer, and then they'll just pick right back up in the fall. And for those who are thinking about getting into Seminole pumpkins and want to know way more about them, check out this video. I'll add it in the playlist at the end. It's everything you need to know about Seminole pumpkin. Now you may be thinking, Jacqueline, I just watched your spring planting video and I didn't hear you talk about beans. We talked about a lot of these other crops being in my garden, but why not beans? Well, for me, I do Puerto Rican black beans and they are crazy. Like I get a crazy amount of them. I can't even harvest them as fast as they get in. And so for me, what I'm gonna be focused on is not in April, but next month starting seeds for those because I wanna have them ready for when the tomatoes are gone. And another thing that you may wanna consider with beans, as you're having cold weather crops out, if you don't have those places filled with warm weather crops, you should really consider adding beans because they can also help fix the soil, right? Add some nitrogen back in, which all of your other plants, that's what makes them green, is the nitrogen component. So consider adding beans, even if you're not a big bean fan, just so you can help re-enrich your soil. You can always chop and drop them, just get some beans in your life. But if you can't get your hands on something like Puerto Rican black beans, you should consider doing things like black-eyed peas, cow peas. There's a lot of different types. Also, use Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. They really specialize in seeds for the South. And if you read the descriptions, they'll often say made in Florida, cultivated in Florida, made for Florida's heat and sun. Like, you'll find a bunch of varieties in there. So there are so many varieties that can work. Check out there and see if you can find something that you like, and you can order them online and get them delivered straight to your house. Now, when it comes to warm weather crops, basically Central South Florida, if you haven't gotten your transplants in, you're done. The only way you could really get around this is, I would say, with certain pepper plants, not your sweet, don't do bell peppers. But if you're doing something like jalapenos or a lot of our hot peppers like habaneros, you want to do those spicy Thai peppers, you could consider doing something like that. One thing to watch out for is that you want to put these in locations that will eventually get some shade in the summertime. Not full shade, but a little bit of shade, because a lot of those hot pepper varieties will go through the summer. Even in Central and South Florida, this is actually something you could still do if your beds are out in full sun, because you're used to using them just for lettuce in the winter time. You could put these in pots and then just kind of move them. But for my North Floridians, if you're still interested in getting warm weather crops growing, you can. You guys still have some of that coolness. Not here. I'm zone 10B. We're not cool at all right now. Man, it's a humid day. You guys can still get some of your warm weather crops going. So remember, do tomatoes that have like small little fruits, you know, those things that are like your cherry tomatoes, your grape tomatoes, sweet 100s, and of course, Everglades tomatoes. Another thing to think about when it comes to veggies right now is considering how you're gonna be doing succession planting. A lot of, especially in Central and South Florida, we're gonna start seeing this month a lot of your cold weather crops. If they haven't gone through their harvest, they're gonna start bolting. This is just because it's just the ground's getting hot enough. They wanna try to set seed before it gets too bad and throw their seeds everywhere. So you may see things like your broccoli's bolting, your lettuce is bolting. So be prepared to get your harvest before they bolt, unless you want to collect seeds, which is also a good idea. The other thing to think about before you harvest out those cold weather crops is to take advantage of those plants, even if they're bolting, by setting seeds of your hot weather crops underneath them. It's one of the things I just did in the spring planting video is I was starting to put peppers underneath my cold weather crops, so that this month, as everything is getting pulled out of the beds, they're basically getting hardened off in bed. So then as I kind of cut back the leaves and then I take out the lettuces and the broccolis, then the peppers won't have been like, it's UV index 10 right now. It's a lot. And I'm gonna be doing something really similar also with my hot weather crops. I'm gonna be using the fact that I have cold weather and warm weather crops in place to start setting seeds for hot weather crops in bed. That way I don't have to do as much like start in the tray, stay on top of watering, and all the stuff you have to do to make seedlings grow, and then make sure that you transplant them right. It worked really well for me with my cold weather crops to just be like, I want it here, I will put 5 seeds here. And I think I'm gonna do that a lot for what's gonna replace everything as we head towards spring and then summer. April is really dry month. Water table is dropping and dropping and dropping. This is basically the water line in the ground, and it's going to keep getting lower because April is the driest month of the year. That means the water's way down. And for veggies, the deepest roots that you'll even see with a veggie on plants like tomatoes and broccolis is about 18 inches. And right now I can tell you the water table in my area as of mid-March was already 3 feet down. Let's see if they can see it. Yeah, you guys see, there you go. There's the water table. That doesn't mean there isn't any moisture in the soil. It just means it's going to drop through faster and faster and faster. So make sure that you're staying on top of your watering needs. Pay attention to your sprinklers and your irrigation, because this is the time of year, if you can stretch a plant out, if you can get a seedling established, it's all gonna be because you helped it along the way. My next tip when it comes to veggies is all about staying on top of your harvest. April is really big month, especially where I live in Central Florida, where as things are starting to bolt, plants start to get stressed from the heat, they are sending signals out to the little buggies, and the bugs are here in full force in April, and they are ready to eat your crops down. So it doesn't matter whether you still have cold weather crops in your bed, or you have warm weather crops, or if you've got new hot weather crops, you're going to see the pest pressure increase dramatically. But one of the ways that you can make it okay is you stay on top of your harvest. So you want to make sure that at least every other day you're doing a sweep through your vegetable garden. You don't need to solve the world. You're just going to go through quickly, and you're going to see anything that is ready for harvest or almost ready for harvest. That is one of the things I had to learn throughout the years, is you don't want to wait for your tomatoes to look perfectly fully ripe red. Like, it's okay if they still have a little green on them. It is better to take them off the vine a tiny bit early and actually get a crop of harvest than it is to lose the whole thing to Mr. Bug or Mr. Possum or Mr. Squirrel, who all are just gonna like snatch that whole thing and then you lose the whole harvest. Also pay attention to the fact that you're gonna have some of your plants bolting. So your lettuces might be heading up, but they're also getting ready to send up that flower. And you wanna catch them before they start doing that because they're gonna start to taste really bitter and not as yummy. Another tip for you when it comes to harvesting is that plants are sad in the afternoon. So try to do your harvest first thing in the morning. That's when a lot of your plants are gonna be nice and crisp and happy and tasting their sweetest. If you can't do it early in the morning, because I know people got jobs, got responsibilities, that's totally okay, then I would recommend wait till the evening after the sun set to also go and grab everything, because then they just taste better, trust me. Now, something that you should consider in your vegetable garden, if you don't already have this in place, is building a trellis. And the reason I bring this up is because your warm weather crops and your hot weather crops, a ton of them love a trellis. Tomatoes, beans, some of your squash plants. And there's a lot of right ways to do trellises. You could do something really beautiful and cottage gardening like I did in a recent project, or you could do something really basic and simple by just putting down some T-posts and a flat panel with some chicken wire on it. There's a lot of options. I'll put a couple different videos to give you some trellis inspiration, but I strongly recommend this. I have for years grown tomatoes on trellises, especially if you're doing something like an Everglades tomato. They're too wild and crazy, like get them on a trellis. Whether you want to do like a gorgeous cottage garden type trellis, you want to do a DIY cattle panel trellis, or you just want to do something really simple like a flat panel trellis that you can put together in just like an hour. Any of these options would be great if you're considering doing some of those plants that would love a trellis. The other thing to consider is when it comes to things like your eggplants, peppers, and if you have bushing tomatoes, is that you still may want to, not quite trellis, but more like cages. These plants can get very top heavy and sometimes heavier than their stems are ready for. So whether you're gonna stake them or put a little cage around them, or you can make your own out of some chicken panel and just wire it together. There's a lot of right ways to do it. Also consider doing that because this is the time of year, if you've gotten them established, they might start like to flop over. I know we always put this in the veggie section, but it's technically a fruit, but no one thinks of it like a fruit because it's not like a tree. But let's do a little quick tip on strawberries. I know our major strawberry season has passed. Everyone's strawberries are starting to slow down at this time of year if they haven't totally quit. If you have your strawberries in pots, it is a good time to start shifting those into semi-shade areas. Your strawberries can survive the summer. Mine have. They can actually go year over year, throw out little daughter strawberry plants and continue to propagate. If you have your strawberries in beds like this is the time of year to consider transplanting them into pots so that you can move them into shadier locations. Let's talk fruit. Well, I guess we already did with strawberries, but if you're looking for fruits that you should start in the month of April, my Central Floridians, my South Floridians, have at it. If it's a tropical fruit, whether you want bananas, papayas, mulberries, pineapples, passion fruit, jackfruits, lychees, you want it, go ahead, just go for it. It is now warm enough and we're past those freezing temperatures that kill off tropical plants. If you're interested, go for it. Do it. Now the watch out is because we said it is the dry season and the water table is at slowest points. Since most of these are tropical plants, they tend to get established and get going in the monsoon months from their home areas. So if you were to start something like a banana or papaya, you will want to stay on top of the watering. These plants are huge water suckers. So if you are going to go ahead and put a banana or a papaya or one of these tropical fruiting plants in ground, you're going to want to really stay on top of their watering for the next month, even 2 months, to make sure that they get really good, strong root systems so that they can get really well established so that they can make you tons and tons of fruit. Another tip is for those of you who actually have perennialized fruiting trees, oftentimes in the month of April, you're going to see a lot of these harvests come in, like your bananas, especially for my zone 11s and my warmer zone 10s, like 10B. You may have had bananas that went through the winter months. You may have papayas that went through the winter months. And you're going to see as it starts to warm up, they're quickly going to go from having just hung there for literally 3-4 months to boom, being ripe. So what you're going to want to make sure you're doing is really looking for those signs of them turning from green to ripe. And you're going to want to harvest those quick because wildlife loves these plants, loves them. Mr. Squirrel is like super happy that my papayas are about to turn ripe. Let's talk flowers. In the month of April, if you're looking to add big, beautiful, bold blooms to your garden, you've got a lot of options. Whether you're going to go with native wildflowers or you're going to go with large flowering shrubs or trees. When it comes to native wildflowers, There's just so many in bloom. If you have the planter, you know the list is really, really long. But when it comes to the ones that are gonna have some of the biggest and boldest blooms right now, you can see a few of them behind me, and that's gonna be things like your cone flowers, whether they're gonna be black-eyed Susans or orange cone flowers, or one of the many, many other varieties of cone flowers that are native to our home state. Also, things like our verbenas, like beach verbena and Tampa verbena, are continuing to go strong and really fill out and look bold and beautiful. Both of these plants are great if you're looking to attract butterflies to your garden, especially things like verbena, because butterflies are looking for high nectar sources, and verbenas with their buttercup shape are going to definitely pull in a lot of butterflies, especially small, medium, and you might even get some large ones on them. Another wildflower that you might want to add to your landscape, which is a low ground cover, is going to be blue porterweed. This isn't the porterweed that you find in the store. That's actually an invasive species. It's like a tall shrub. The native one is actually a low growing shrub. It stays about 1 foot tall. This is a really good if you're looking kind of for that ground cover for filling out flower beds. And it is loved, especially by things like your green orchid bees, your blue jeweled sweat bees, your honey bees, if you have them in your garden, and small butterflies from Cassius blue, Miami blue, and a ton of little blue butterflies. Plus, it'll also pull over things like monarch butterflies and other medium butterflies. You also get things like your blue-eyed grasses that are growing really strong, and things like salt and pepper, which is a favorite of bees. And all of these plants be great to put near your vegetable garden, especially for your warm weather crops, because they need pollinators. So if you're looking to increase your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, definitely put some of these native wildflowers near there, because the bees love them. I know I have them close to my tomatoes, and I've got an insane amount of tomatoes right now. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up with all of them. Another one that you might want to add to your garden is scorpion tail. And this is a great one because it doesn't have a big bold bloom. It has actually very teeny tiny blooms, but it attracts wasps. Now you may say, Jacqueline, why would I want to attract wasps to my garden? I don't want wasps. These in general are not going to be large wasps. These are going to be smaller wasps, but they're very predatory and they love eating aphids and lots of other small, tiny, teeny tiny caterpillar type things. You know, the ones that eat your veggies and your flowers down. So adding something like scorpion tail, whether it's into a pot or you just create a little area for it, will bring in a lot more predatory species, which you will need in order to be able to have a very balanced garden throughout the heat of spring and summer. So consider adding scorpion tail to your garden. Now, when it comes to big, bold blooms for the month of April, if you're looking for those giant Florida-friendly shrubs or native trees to add to your garden, here are some ones that you should consider. First off, there are different roses that we can actually grow here in Florida, even as far as South Florida. So if you're looking to really create a cottage garden look, you could add one of these roses to your garden. Another thing that you should consider having in your garden, I mean, it is such a staple of the South, is a southern magnolia. These are native trees to the southern United States, and they have huge flowers. I mean, like huge. These flowers are bigger than your face. Like, who doesn't want a flower as big as a dish? They are gorgeous white flowers. Bees will literally just flop around in the pollen that are caught by the petals. They're gorgeous. And even later on, when they're not flowering and they're putting out their seeds or berries that the birds would like to eat, they just have this really gorgeous cone-like shape that honestly could make a wonderful table arrangement or just look really pretty on the tree. The trees in general are so gorgeous because you have those shiny, leathery looking leaves with a brass bronze underside. I mean, they're just like really attractive trees. If you have the space for a southern magnolia, like, you should do it. You can even get one of the sweet bay magnolias, which is not only a smaller tree with those giant gorgeous flowers, but also is a host plant, which is a host plant to the eastern tigered swallowtail. Now, of course, for my central and my south Floridians, if you are thinking about wanting big white roses but are struggling with having the idea of roses or thorns in your garden, you should really consider adding gardenias. These plants have big, bold, gorgeous smells. They stay evergreen throughout the year, especially my zone 10s and 11s. They can create that cottage garden look. They actually prefer a semi-shade location over a full sun location and more of a citrus smell to it. I mean, citrus flower. Consider gardenias. And of course, in the month of April, when it comes to large trees that are flowering beyond our native magnolia, consider doing yellow tabs related to the pink tabs that we talked about in the previous months. Yellow tababuyas or yellow trumpet trees are gorgeous. And if you're looking for big, bold yellow, and actually in the same family as the pink tabs that we've talked about and the yellow tabs, is a purple tab or a purple trumpet tree, or more commonly known here in Florida as jacaranda. Ever seen the pictures of San Diego, St. Petersburg, or even Australia covered in blue purple blooms? That, my friends, is a jacaranda, and yes, you can have it in your yard. But if you're looking for a classic that's going to bloom for spring, summer, and fall, and part of the winter too, depending on where you live, of course, if you live in Florida, you should consider adding a hibiscus. We have both native hibiscuses like our scarlet hibiscus and our swamp rose mallow, or you can get one of our Florida friendly. There are so many varieties and they come in so many different colors, from fuchsia pinks to white to pale pinks like the Seminole hibiscus. There's a lot of options. Now, a tip for everyone, whether you're into veggies, fruits, or flowers, you're gonna want to stay on top of weeds this month. Everything is in full bloom and exploding. If you haven't been doing weekly sweeps of your garden, you're gonna quickly find that weeds are gonna get out of control and start trying to take over. So make sure that you add it to your weekly schedule, if not every couple days, to just go around and do a quick check and pull plants that don't belong. So if you're looking to learn how to identify those weeds so that you know which ones to pull and which ones maybe to actually keep, you're gonna wanna check out that, plus videos on Seminole pumpkins, bananas, papayas, and how to plan your spring vegetable garden, all in this playlist right here. If you want to pick up your copy of the Wild Floridian Garden Planner, you can pick it up at www.wildfloridian.net/planner, or just click this link right here. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.